Today's video was selected for you by my gorgeous patrons, so thank you very much to them for making this selection. And if you would like to be involved in future video polls and also have access to the Discord, the one card riff video every month and other privileges as well, check out the tiers. I will leave all the information down below. Hello, my delectable sunflowers. I have been tasked with the task of telling you how you could possibly quit your bad habits using the craft. And I think that is very, very possible to do. I have done it myself, and I think I will continue to do it my whole life long. First thing I want to say is that witchcraft is an incredibly reliable and constant tool for living a better life. And I think that we actually frequently forget that. So I think it's worth saying, and I think it bears repeating. I forget it frequently, and I've written a fucking book on witchcraft. So from my perspective, I think it's always good to hear it again. Witchcraft is there for you, okay? Don't panic. You've got this. Witchcraft is by your side. Witchcraft is within your grasp, and you can use it to make really significant, beautiful, bold, positive changes and move your life forward in ways that you never imagined and in ways that you have scarcely been able to bring yourself to believe would be possible for some time. I think the inclusion of witchcraft into any kind of system that you're using or toolkit that you're using to quit bad habits is an excellent idea. And so we should never forget that it is there for us. And I think many witches actually battle alone with trying to quit bad habits without the inclusion of the craft. So I'm hoping that this video is going to bring us all to a greater sense of consciousness and a sense of the availability of witchcraft. We use the craft for a lot of different things, but actually when it comes to kicking bad habits, the craft is particularly effective. Not everybody that is watching this video is going to need to hear this, but I think some of you are. So let me just clarify now that I've spoken to thousands of people at this point, audience members and clients and people who email me and stuff like that. Thousands of people who have given the craft either partial or total credit for kicking bad habits of every different kind, from laziness to codependency to dangerous driving to self-harm to fidgeting, all kinds of different things like that. I know people who've used the craft to deal with things like unhealthy drug use. I know people who have used witchcraft to kick phone addiction, so we're doing it all over the world all the time. We're bringing our bad habits to the altars, both material and astral, to be able to get some decent results and free ourselves from whatever yucky bondage is keeping us where we are with a bad habit. So I just wanted to clarify for you that I have witnessed over and over again the beauty that the craft brings into people's lives on this. It's really inspiring and joyful for me, always making me quite emotional. So yeah, I want to preface everything that I'm about to advise you in this video by saying it works, okay? It works. It can be part of an incredible system for you, and it can really be the thing that boots things over the edge and gets things into hyperdrive for you. So let's discuss some ideas, darlings, okay? The first thing that I will suggest for you is that you name the bad habit. I think before we use witchcraft for anything, we have to be honest about what we're using it for, and we have to clarify what it is that we are not wanting or that we're trying to rid ourselves of or that we're trying to bring in. And the same is true for any bad habit. So name the bad habit, write it down on a piece of paper, say it out loud so that you can feel yourself being really honest about what it is that is going on, that you are witnessing, that is a problem that needs to change. And then what I would suggest is that you write down anything that you can about the triggers for the bad habit. So what sets it off? The patterns with the bad habit. So what do you see happening when the bad habit comes into being? And what are the consequences? So what happens in the end after you have engaged with your bad habit, you've partaken in your bad habit? What tends to be the outcome for you? Don't worry if you can't think of every single trigger and pattern and consequence right now. Just start by keeping some kind of record, preferably a digital record, because then you can add to it and you can change things. And as you go along, just think more and more about what comes up in terms of triggers that you notice, times where the bad habit is more likely to kick into effect, and then patterns. Maybe as you're going through the pattern that comes from you engaging in the bad habit, you'll be like, oh my God, I need to write that down. That's a pattern. And the consequences, you're likely to come up with more of them as well as you are actually going through them. So keep adding to it, because I think the understanding of the bad habit and how it comes into your life and what it does to you is all part and parcel of being able to understand what witchcraft you want to throw at it. And also it helps you to seek and really maintain the motivation to get to the other side of it. Because let's face it, a lot of bad habits are incredibly Moorish, and we are not always motivated to keep going with ousting them and dismantling them, looking at them, confronting them. So it's good to have your lists there of the triggers, the patterns and the consequences, so you can also look at them and be like, yeah, you know what, this is not something that I want to deal with anymore. This is something that I want to be free of. I want to move past it. Just a tip for you card slingers out there as well. It is a really good 3-card spread. Okay, I've got a lot of issues with 3-card spreads. I think a lot of them are very basic. I think they overlook a lot of things that it would be useful to address with a 3-card reading. And so I often look at 3-card readings and I'm like, you know what, that really misses the mark for me. But I think triggers, patterns, consequences is really good. And so if you do struggle to figure out what they are for you with your bad habit, especially if it's really deeply rooted and it's old as fuck, or likewise if it's a new bad habit and so you haven't really done much information gathering, might I suggest if you use the cards or if you use the runes or anything of that nature, you might want to go ahead and actually do a reading on it to see if you can glean more insight there. Let me give you an example. Let me see, I did write some examples in my notes. Okay, so let's say that your bad habit is skin picking, right? A bad habit of mine, okay, full disclosure. So your trigger for skin picking, or one of your triggers for skin picking, you could find that it would be not hearing from a loved one that you're worried about, or not receiving communication in what you consider to be an adequate time frame. You might find that you are having a decent day, you're minding your own business, and out of nowhere, because you're not hearing from someone, you start to skin pick. Okay, so that would be a trigger for skin picking, is not hearing from someone consistently or adequately, you feel, right? That's a trigger. Then the pattern with the skin picking, that could include the way that you tend to skin pick, the severity with which you tend to skin pick, that will be part of the pattern. You might notice that it puts you into a shame spiral, and that means that you start madly hassling the person that you want to hear from, you know, because you would like to stop skin picking, but you feel like you need to hear from that person in order to get to the other side of what you're doing to yourself. All of these things would be the pattern, okay? It's the way the bad habit manifests. It's what happens while the bad habit is going on. What is a consequence then of the skin picking? That could be that your fingers bleed. If you skin pick your fingers bleed. You experience pain or tenderness by the end of engaging in the habit. You hate showing your hands in public afterwards. And you may also feel that you've made your bad habit into somebody else's problem by messaging them or hassling them, calling them excessively, right? So you can see that those 3 simple focus areas, the triggers, the patterns, the consequences, they do give you a lot of information to help you understand the bad habit by, you know, looking at its effects, looking at how it comes up, and then it motivates you to do something about it, you know. It also helps you to direct the witchcraft. So for you, you might look at the trigger and think, you know what, I also need to do some witchcraft around the trigger, which is feeling that I need to be in more constant communication than perhaps other people are prepared to give to me. Or you may even look at the trigger for the skin picking and think, it's only that one person that I don't hear from. And maybe within that relationship with that one person, there are issues. And so maybe I need to actually cut off from that one person or distance myself from that one person for a while, or start to shift my mindset around what I need from that person. And it will really depend on your individual situation. It's very nuanced for everybody. But sometimes when I'm looking at the triggers, the patterns and the consequences, not only am I fired up to use magic and witchcraft techniques, but also I look at the trigger and I think, there's an issue there. So it might not just be that I want to deal with the bad habit, but also that there is some issues within the triggers for that bad habit that are calling me to use the craft as well. So it's just very illuminating, my darlings. It tends to be a decent place to begin. You might feel like you want to skip past this whole step because you know your bad habit inside out and back to front. You know already by heart the triggers, the patterns, the consequences. So that's not going to be relevant for you. But I think for a lot of people, it's useful to do. And definitely, even if you don't go through this 3-step process, definitely write the bad habit down and read the bad habit aloud. You can just write like, I skin pick when I'm anxious, or I am dealing with skin picking, or I want to stop skin picking. It doesn't really matter on the wording. Write it how you feel. But I do think it's very helpful to begin any and all witchcraft techniques by really getting clear on what is going on that I want to deal with, you know, and making it your business to get intimate with what is happening in terms of confronting it. You know, let's not dance around it. Let's write it down, speak it aloud, look in the mirror, say it to ourselves, however we feel like we want to do it, but so that it is really confronted. We are interfacing with that bad habit before we do anything else. This is also part of taking responsibility for what it is that we're doing with our witchcraft and bringing our witchcraft back to self. In other words, I think that if we are honest about the fact that we are in control of the bad habit, we get to decide what happens next. It's happening to us and we need to deal with it. That makes us bring our witchcraft to a stronger position. Because for me, I always feel like if I'm using my witchcraft to try and alter too much somebody else's behavior or focus too much on what is wrong with the external situation, I'm missing a trick. Does that make sense? I'm missing the opportunity to go within and look at what is going on with me that is within my internal locus of control. And that's really what I mostly want to use witchcraft for. I don't just use it for that, but when it comes to bad habits, I want to make sure that I'm avoiding blaming other things or other people, because yes, of course, they come into the triggers and they may come into the patterns and the consequences, but ultimately this witchcraft is about me and me. It's about figuring out what is the next step, the next sacred right action in order for me to do better, be better, feel better, and release myself from the yuckiness. So it's really about me, and I want to make sure that I'm not focusing too much on what other people need to do to change for me, or what other things need to end or change in order for me to stop the habit. I want to feel like I'm coming from a place of fucking power with it, you know, that actually it's completely possible for me to deal with the bad habit, and I need minimal focus on what is going on that other people need to deal with. Never mind them, they're on their own journey. I need to bring it back to me, you know, so it also helps for that as well. When you write down or type out the bad habit and you look at it and you read those words and you say those words aloud and you put those words on your heart and into your consciousness, that is the first step in making a commitment to the work that you're going to do as a witch. And you can follow on from that first step and you can make other gestures of commitment to the work that you're going to do. This is what makes it real. It brings it to your practice of witchcraft so that you're not just thinking about it occasionally, you know, kind of sidestepping around it in your craft, but you're really saying, I now, as a witch, dedicate myself to using my power for this intention. So there are a number of different ways that you can make the commitment to the work. First of all, I think a really good way to commit to breaking a bad habit for me is to have a working candle that is specifically dedicated to my aim to break that habit. So usually what I do is I take a candle, a brand new candle. You can do this materially or you can do it astrally. You don't need to use a candle that you can actually hold with your physical form. You can go onto the astral and do this. It's up to you. But I get a candle and I tend to put it in oil. So I rub things into it. I carve it. I usually rub chili powder into whatever I've carved, and it will usually be a rune or something else that represents the issue that I'm dealing with that I want to change. So I've dedicated the candle for that intention. Get a bit of chili powder in there. I find that really useful. And I sort of oil up the candle. I might rub some lavender on there or a herb mix that I have commissioned from a witch or bought from the witchy shop. I don't make my own mixes. And then that candle is ready to be lit for me to speak over it my words of power and intention. And I will either use affirmations or words of power that I've pre-written to read out over the candle, or I'll just put my palms over the candle, over the top of the flame. Not too close, darlings, okay? Safety first. And I just say, like, I am ready. I am ready in this moment to confront the bad habit. I'm ready to throw every fucking thing at the wall and see what sticks. I, in my full witchhood, come to the practice of unlearning and releasing myself from whatever it is that is happening. And I state the bad habit. So we're being very intentional here. We're being very kind of like, this candle represents my dedication. There is no going back now. I have said that I have lit the flame of the craft in the name of this release work, in the name of this healing work, in the name of this empowerment work. Whatever words you want to use, it's totally up to you. They don't have to be your own words. They can be song lyrics. They can be quotes. You can repeat them a number of times, or you can say them just once. But I do think for me, it's very necessary to put both light and language to something that I'm really serious about kicking in the arse. You know, it just makes it real. It sets it on fire, literally, in some cases, you know, with the candle in the physical realm. And it makes me feel like, yeah, okay, I'm geared up to fucking do this work. I want this work for myself. Having a candle that represents the work that you're going to do is one part of a much bigger thing, which is actually having a dedicated space, again, materially or astrally or both, which is completely symbolic only of the habit that you're breaking. So, you know, when you have an altar, and on the altar you might have like your crystal ball there, your deity stuff there, you've got a deck of cards there. These things all represent different sort of aims or practices that you've got on your altar. And you know when you go to your altar that you are going to be playing with cards today, or you're going to be doing a devotional today, or whatever it is. So you've got already some dedicated parts of your space, again, materially or astrally, that you use for different things. Now, if we're really serious about breaking a bad habit, let's actually make a dedicated space only for breaking that bad habit, so that every time you look in that direction on your altar, every time you go to that particular altar on the astral or in your home, every time you go to that section of your book of mirrors, you can have a dedicated section in your book of mirrors or book of shadows related to it. Every time you're in that area, it's about the habit breaking. Okay, you're actually fully focused on that. So you've literally got somewhere that you go where it's all about that. And that really strengthens it as well. You can have tools, you can bring together a toolkit that represents that habit breaking work that you're doing. And the toolkit can involve things like crystals that you use for support and empowerment, that you might hold during your meditations, that you might hold while you're saying your words of power. It can include jewelry that you have enchanted purely for the purpose of breaking the habit. So it might be an amethyst pendant that you wear whenever you're saying your words of power. It might be a bracelet that you put on whenever you're going into situations that tend to trigger your bad habit. It could be anything like that. You can use clothing. You know, you can put on clothing that is charged up for the purpose of empowering you to break the bad habit, to avoid the bad habit, to deal with the triggers before they turn into patterns, whatever it might be. I also would recommend, if you're really serious about breaking this habit, that you give it a logo. Give your intention and your passion for breaking this habit some kind of logo. Give it a symbol. It could be a plant or a tree. It could be an animal. It could be a cartoon character. It could be a specific color or some kind of energetic shape or sigil of some kind. It could be anything. It could be a word, just a word of power. You know, anything. It could be the word dare or the word brave or the word mystify, something like that, where you look at that word and you're like, every time I look at that word, it symbolizes my journey, my intention to be free of this, to be rid of this. All together, you're kind of bringing a toolkit. You can bring a deck. You can say, okay, for the next however long it takes for me to really work on this and really break it, I'm going to have this one deck that I use to give myself advice, to give myself encouragement. You can have pieces of art that you use that are part of the toolkit. You could say, I really love this image, you know, it really gives me a sense of empowerment. It gives me a sense of freedom. And so I'm going to put that image in the break the bad habit section, so that every time I engage with that image, I'm giving myself the opportunity to steel my intention and really feel that resilience and feel the possibility of not living with this habit anymore. You can have all kinds of things. You can have specific food, specific snacks that you dedicate to the breaking of that bad habit, unless your bad habit is snacking. Okay, I'm looking at you. I'm watching you. Okay, I've got your number. Do not snack as part of your work in the craft if the bad habit is snacking. Okay, needless snacking. All right, bit of a graze every now and again is good, but it's good to look at like unnecessary snacking if that's what you feel you need to do. Okay, so don't bring anything in that's going to be like indirect conflict, you know, with the bad habit, but bring in tools, bring in visual aids, bring in talismans, bring in your objects and your symbols and your words of strength and devotion to this process. If you're working with a specific kind of animal ally or a specific deity, a specific disembodied being, if you know that that particular being, that particular energy is going to help you with your work, bring that in, bring an image of that being, bring the name of that being, bring anything that you know that that being likes, you know, any kind of sort of offering materials that that being likes. All of these things are your toolkit, your power pack, basically. When it comes to the symbols that you use, my darlings, as kind of part of that power pack, it can be symbols that you know really well, that you see all the time, like the symbol of the rose is a really big symbol of power and potency and belief for me as a witch. Or it can be something that no one's ever seen before, that's just in your imagination. You might say, okay, every time I think about breaking this bad habit and bringing my strength and awareness to it, or healing having just partaken in it, I'm going to think about a castle on a pink cloud with a unicorn sitting on top of it, eating some popcorn. That's going to be my vision. That's going to be my symbol that I associate with everything that I need to be able to say no to this habit, to reduce this habit, to break it, to be fucking rid of it. So that's just an image that you've created. That is a specific logo that in your mind and in your mind's eye, you have decided represents your journey with being free of this habit. So it doesn't have to be a common thing. It can be something that really, really fires you up, like the symbol of a rock god, that you always feel like when you engage with the music made by that rock god, you can do anything. It could be the symbol of your football team, right? I'm literally looking at an Arsenal flag right now in my partner's bedroom, and I'm looking at the red cannon on that Arsenal flag, and I'm like, you know what? That makes me feel some shit, you know? If I were a very, very true red Arsenal supporter, that might be what I would choose, right? That feeling of like potency, that feeling of possibility and belief and strength and being in the game. So, you know, whatever it might be, you can choose that, you know, you can choose vampire teeth, you can choose like a sacred sun with a face on it, you can choose like a birch tree or an oak tree. Oak is a really good one, very strong, very, very like very resilient. You know, you can look at these things and say, this is my power pack, my toolkit, my logo, my color, the thing that I want to temporarily associate for whatever length of time with my ability to fight this and to be done with it. So make sure that you've got those things, you know, that it's not just you nakedly fighting alone in some uninspired way, but you actually have like a toolkit that is readily available for this work. Okay, so what comes next? What is the next thing? Well, if you're like me and you want to be really extra, if you want to be extra, read all about it, you're going to want to do some kind of commitment ceremony, some kind of ritual that represents that like, now I am in readiness. And that might just involve consecrating the various things that you've brought together, the various symbols and ideas and shapes and jewelry or whatever that you've brought together for this purpose. It might just be that. You might just want to put your hands over, or whatever you use to consecrate, you know, whatever gesture you do, whatever tools you use, if you have a wand or whatever. You might just want to say, I dedicate this area and these objects to the process of breaking this bond, you know, and it could be as simple as that. I like to do other things, you know, so I also, while I've lit the candle that is dedicated to that work and I'm looking at the stuff, right, I might also want to use quotes. So one of my favorite quotes in the world, as I know a lot of you already know, is Joan of Arc. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. A great one for habit breaking. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. It just never gets old. It's so potent, the thought of her saying that. Damn. God. Sorry, me and Joan of Arc go way back. So you choose something like that, you know. I loathe to quote Winston Churchill, but he did say something really great once. He said, when you're going through hell, keep going. I love that. Good for habit breaking. There's shitloads of quotes. Find the quotes. Think of Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. You know, there's just so many words. Use all the words all the time. It makes me so sad that I will never have enough time on this planet for all the words that are so bloody powerful. Duh. And I'll only get them in a very, very small amount of languages. I can flirt with some languages, but I'll never know them all. I'll never be able to learn them all. It's so sad. So yeah, get your words out, say the words, that's powerful. I also really like to ingest food or drink. So I might really put all my power and potency into a glass of water. I'll think about how much I want to break the habit, how much my life is going to be better when it's broken, how determined I am, how I will not go back. This is irreversible will now, and I'm going boldly forward. And I think about that as I charge the water and then I knock it back like a fucking shot, like Frida Kahlo in the movie, okay? I'm in the bar and I'm just like, I'm taking that down. I ingest that into me. That's mine now, you know, or do it with food. You know, put it into the food and eat the food. Eat the food in a purposeful way, rip into that bread and ingest it. And by doing so, you're saying, I take this into me. You know, I find that to be very powerful for a commitment ceremony, very powerful. You feel different before you do it and then after you do it. And that's really the main thing we want from a ritual, right? You could read out an entire declaration during your commitment ceremony. You know, you can commit also to your gods that this is what you're doing and ask them to watch over you, ask them to give you their potency and their advice, put some respect on their names. You can make some kind of mood board or vision board or sacred art piece. And in doing so, you're making the commitment and doing the ceremony in that moment, and then you consecrate that piece when it's finished and you say, I will look at this every single time I feel like faltering. This is the art that is going to see me through. You can do that with poetry as well. You know, you can choreograph a fucking dance and say, this is the dance I do when I know that I need to be with myself in this process. This dance represents the gateway to my freedom. There's so many ways to do it, darlings. So many ways. So many bastard ways, okay? So get creative, think about what you would like, and really go deeply with what inspires you and what tends to make you feel ready to do something. Let's talk about work with your disembodied beings, okay? Your ancestors, your spirits, your guides, your deities. There is really more work that can be done with them. You can engage with them. You can do a reading asking them for their wisdom and advice on how you will break this habit. Get them really engaged with the process. Ask them to be involved. Really visualize yourself into their energy, evoke their spirit by becoming them for a time in your emotion and your imagination, to try and think about how they would break the habit, how they would bring their strength to it, and then try to reflect that, try to use that as an influence. There are reasons that we work with disembodied beings, and one of the biggest reasons is inspiration, divine inspiration. This would be the very best time to lean into that inspiration. Have you any idea the amount of times I felt like I couldn't do something until I thought of hell, or until I thought of Joan of Arc, or until I thought of the Virgin Mary, the Blessed Holy Mother at the foot of the cross? I have not been able to do so many things until I brought that in. Tyr putting his hand in Fenrir's fucking mouth, the leavings of the wolf, you know? When I think about that, then I think I can do this. I've got this. I evoke their spirit. I think of their story, and it marks me out as different in some way than I was when I felt helpless and when I felt like the bad habit was in control. Something shifts in me on that cellular level that I need to be able to make things cook on gas. And that is the whole of the craft. That is what it's for. God, I feel like a charismatic preacher today. I'm like, listen to me. Let's do this together, guys. I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm so sorry. I haven't even had coffee or anything. I'm just like so charged up. I think their energy in this room is off the chain as well. So I'm just going with it. So yes, you know, like bring in the work with your deities, the work with your beings. Darlings, I just want to take a moment to say I am teaching another round of the Heart of Deity workshop. If you were not there for the first Heart of Deity live 3-hour workshop and you want to be there this time, there are still tickets available at the time of me making this, okay? At the time of this video coming out, the workshop is this coming weekend. So get your ticket, come and join me live. If you can't join me live, you can still get the playback. But if you are wanting to draw closer to deity, if you're wanting to figure out what kind of deity worker you are and how it fits in with your personality type, if you want to troubleshoot deity work, I've got you covered with that workshop. So please get on board, grab a ticket, come and join us. It's going to be mint, darling. It's going to be peng, okay? What more can I say? So ask for the presence of your disembodied beings, okay? Give them offerings by way of thanks if that's what you do. Tell them that you are open to the wisdom that they can bring to this situation, that you know that they have a perspective on it that you might never be able to see, and that you're willing to take their guidance, you're open to their direction. You are grateful for the map that they will draw for you. So if you work with beings, that's a really good way. If you work with elemental spirits, if you work with natural forces in your environment, if you have a particular tree that you go to that is your witchy tree, a particular body of water, you know, anything like that, you can go to that place and you can say, I also commit to learning from you. You have stood a long time. Your roots go deep. Your branches go high. Your water has been flowing for X amount of 100 years. I know that you have also the steadfastness to inspire me and see me through. So bring in all of those inspirations. Don't be afraid. Don't do it on your own. Don't feel like it's got to be me now here on my own. No, it doesn't. Witchcraft gives you company, lots of divine company for any journey that you choose to go on. You are drawing from things that are bigger and older and wiser than you, and you're leaning on that, and you're witnessing that you also are someone that has that invested in you. You are that 200-year-old tree. You are that body of water. You are the god of war, you know, so you're using it as a mirror for you all the time. And that lets me segue nicely into the next thing that you're going to want to be doing, okay, in witchcraft, if you want to break a bad habit. Mirror work. Mirror work is your friend. It's not for everyone, okay? Nothing I'm suggesting in this video is for everyone. I know that, guys. I know that, all right? Everyone's got to find their own ways and their things that work. But for me, mirror work is so powerful. I will light the candle that represents the negative habit that I want to break, and I will look into that mirror. I'll go along on my mala beads or my rosary, usually mala beads, because rosary I associate more with a specific type of prayer. But rosary, if there's nothing else, you know, rosary if I'm traveling or whatever. Rosary sometimes if I'm working really specifically with the Mother Mary as well on the breaking of the habit. But usually hell is the one that lets me put a bad habit over my knee and spank it, you know. I mean, she really helps me break that shit in half. So, you know, maybe Mary for the aftercare. Mary for aftercare, all right? So yeah, I use my beads, I go through the beads, I look into the mirror, and I say anything and everything that I feel I need to say. Usually it's in the direction of power and potency. So I will say, I've got this, nothing can break my will. You know, I draw all of my attention to this now. I put this over my knee and I break it in half. I give it to hell. I surrender it to the foot of the goddess. And I say, here are the broken pieces of the habit. Have them. Like, I do this in your honor. Whatever the fuck it is I want to do, whatever I want to say. I might say something like, I'm scared, but I'm doing it now. You know, I'm fearful, but I'm with myself. And I look into my eyeballs. You do not have to do it physically. You do not need to have any fucking eyeballs to do mirror work. You can face to face with your own energy signature on the astral realm without ever opening your eyes or having eyes once, okay? So this is not some ableist shit. Anybody can do this work. You just take it to the abstract and you do it there. But you are confronting yourself, you're interfacing with yourself, and you're saying something back to yourself that you're going to ingest. This can be done ad nauseum. You might want to do it once a day. You might only want to do it on the full moon. You might want to sit there and do it for frigging hours until your voice is hoarse. You know, I've done it always. But I have a mirror in my altar drawer. It's one of those little Hollywood mirrors, you know, where you turn the light on and all the lights come round the outside. And I have many times sat in the darkness at my altar with just the candle burning, and I have spoken to myself, and it is so helpful. I do struggle with body dysmorphia. I have been meaning to make a video about that for a while. And because of my relationship with my body sometimes being in flux, dependent upon PMT, depression, other factors, I sometimes cannot manage mirror work. But when it's useful, it's awesome. When it's good, it's great. Okay, so I really want to say that it's a way for you to keep coming home to your intention and charging yourself up from your own power source. When you do mirror work, my darlings, you may have revelations, you may have insights, you may receive messages. Don't be worried about stopping the mirror work to make a record of whatever it is that might come up. You might feel instinctively inspired to write down words that you later will use in other workings. You might feel like the goddess just pops in and is at your shoulder and says something to you. Don't be afraid to stop the mirror work to write things down. Hell, don't be afraid to stop the mirror work to go to the fucking loo. Do what you got to do, okay? But come back to the mirror work and keep going with it. Enjoy it. See it as sumptuous, you know? You can take breaks. You can have a cup of tea, you know? And if you feel awkward about mirror work, if you've never done it before, start with a little bit of humor. Do some funny faces in the mirror and just be like, well, this is fucking awkward. And then go into it. Trust me, once you find the groove in the wood, it can be incredibly penetrative in terms of what it does to your psyche. Some of your habit breaking work in witchcraft is not going to happen when you are conveniently at your altar or conveniently able to go onto the astral and do the work there. It's going to happen in the moment when you are interfacing with the trigger that makes the bad habit come in. And what do you do for that? I would say that for that, mudras are really good, you know, holding a hand gesture that you can do that reminds you of your resilience. That's a really good thing. You can go quickly to the loo or go outside or whatever and just repeat words of power to yourself a few times, you know, just gently reminding yourself that, like, okay, I'm interfacing with the trigger, it's okay, because I'm not working alone anymore. I've got this whole toolkit with me, and I have my will. My will is first and foremost the quintessential witchcraft tool, and I have that. I have that. It has not abandoned me. I do not want this for myself. I choose another way. I choose differently. Okay? So that's a really good thing to do. You might also want to have a space on the astral that you can quickly go to that is intended for the express purpose of just charging up on your will and your resilience, okay? A few years ago now, I was trying to get out of a really difficult, horrible, fucked up, codependent relationship with a dysfunctional twat who I now no longer speak to, okay? It was a horrible time, horrible, but it was a very, very Moorish, very immersive, very coercive connection, unfortunately for me. And I designed a room in my astral mansion. Yes, I do have a mansion, okay? I'm very extra on the astral. There are many, many rooms. And I decided to make a room in my astral mansion, and that room was kitted out with everything that I needed to remind myself that I am worth more than that. And because I have a very strong mind's eye, I can go there in a second. And it was basically like plugging myself into the wall. If I was a phone, I started charging up again. And it also takes me away from the trigger, even momentarily. It makes me think, okay, wait a minute, I need to go to the astral room. Okay, I'm there. You know, the things are there, the music's playing that I intended to have playing, that stuff's on the wall that I left there. I'm in my safe space now. This is the astral charge up room. I am not going to reply to him. I am not going to do it. You know, so it's really useful to have a place on the astral. Everybody's relationship with the mind's eye is different. I will have to make a video about that at some point. I will have to talk about people that don't have a mind's eye and how they relate to magic, because I've worked with a lot of people for whom that is the case. But that's another thing that you can do. You can take your jewelry with you that you've consecrated for the purpose of habit breaking. Hold that pendant, twist that necklace, do something with that ear jewelry, okay? Really make sure that you are lending yourself and your attention to the physical things that you've used for the purpose of lowering the anxiety and dealing with the triggers. Now, you may not always have those physical things on you, and that's okay. You know, you shouldn't have to need them to habit break, but it's useful to have that necklace whenever you're going into a situation that involves a trigger. It's useful to sort of grab that crystal that you're using whenever you feel like you're going through a pattern. So try and keep them on you if you possibly can, okay? You can also just take a photo of that area of your altar. If you have a physical area that's dedicated to habit breaking, take a photo of it, put it on your phone, use it as your screensaver if it's safe to do that. So you can always look at those objects. You don't even need to have them physically with you. If you've always got your phone with you, hey presto, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, okay? So there are lots of different things that you can do as you're going through the day that do not require you to be deep in the actual practice of orthodox witchcraft, as I think of it. You know, so sitting down, visualizing, mirror working, all that stuff. That's great, but you can do witchcraft on the go. You can stay with your will and intention while you're on the go. Do not think that you can't do that, because you absolutely can, and it's a big part of it. You know, it's just like shadow work, darlings. Shadow work is so much more than the journaling and the ritual and the therapy and the whatever else. Shadow work is practical. It's in the moment as you're interfacing with the shadow in a conversation or a situation. You're a shadow worker in that moment, are you not? You know, all of the rest is just prep for the big show, for the Pink Floyd of the situation, which is where you're in the moment experiencing your desire to go into shadow, or you're experiencing the emergence of shadow. And in that moment you say, showtime, this is not a rehearsal. You know, and that's where it gets real. And it's the same with witchcraft. The things we do at our astral altar, the things we do at our physical altar, the things we write about in our Book of Mirrors, that is prep for showtime. And showtime is when you have the opportunity in a moment to say no to a bad habit. And that's where the alchemy has really taken place, my darlings. So be in that moment, pay attention. Make a servitor, make a servitor. I'm not going to talk about this overly in this video, but I have made a video about servitors, and I will leave that down below. But there are tons of much better, much more succinct resources to basically explain to you practically how to make one and how to work with one, okay? I once made a servitor to help me with my negative self-talk. It was actually just a very glamorous kind of like burlesque version of me that threw my negative self-talk in the bin and walked away from it dancing, you know? Back to way dancing, darling. There was a very funny servitor, but it really did the trick, and it helped me. It kind of broke me out of the obsession with my self-talk, because I was like, I'm going to call in my servitor. I'm going to say the words that bring that servitor in. And then before I know it, I feel the energetic presence of that servitor ripping the self-talk from me, ripping it in half like a packet of old crisps and just chucking it in the fucking bin. And it was very irreverent and it worked wonders. So get into servitor creation if you do not know about magical thought forms and their ability to be able to help you, your ability to design them to your exact specifications so that they do work on your behalf, right? If you don't know about that, get into it. If it sounds like something you might be interested in, get into it. It is really, really juicy. It's a very specific and awesome area of the craft. Now, when it comes to habit breaking, darlings, I do not always implement spellcraft. I know it might sound weird, right? Of course, designing a servitor and bringing the servitor to life is very much kind of a spellcraft thing, because you're directing your will and your intention, you're building the energy, and you're actually like birthing the servitor. But let's talk about other forms of spellcraft now, right? I do not always utilize spellcraft. The reason for this is because some of my bad habits that I have dealt with in witchcraft are extremely long-standing and very deep-rooted. And so I don't actually have the belief or even the desire to think that I can end that long-standing habit with just one spell. It doesn't feel realistic to me. Now, I know that probably sounds really fucking like, you know, realistic and boring and practical and Virgo moon, but I just don't, my heart isn't in the spell. For example, with skin picking, right? I've done a lot of witchcraft around my skin picking. Some of it's been more successful than others. It's not an exact science. I've definitely gotten a lot better. But I never ever believed that I could just deal with my skin picking with one spell, because it's a leftover from a very, 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 very long history of self-harm. And I see that it is very habitual. It's very ingrained, okay? And so for me, I didn't think to myself, oh, I'll just do a sigil spell and that will end itself, because I didn't believe that that was actually possible. It wasn't the way I wanted to deal with it, right? I have done that with other things. I did that with phone addiction a couple of times. When I fell into phone addiction, I did a spell, gone. Because that's not actually really deep-rooted and habitual for me. It's just something that comes up momentarily, circumstantially, if you will. It can be very, very severe, my phone addiction, but it is something that I feel I can use just one spell to deal with. Whereas the skin picking, for me, in my mentality, I knew that's more deep-rooted. It's going to take a lot of different forms of witchcraft, not just spellcraft, but other things as well. The divination, the mirror work, the affirmations, the energy work, all of that stuff. So I didn't use a spell for that. So it really depends what you're feeling. You can throw everything at the wall if you want to. You can use every technique in this video and do spellcraft. For some people, you're going to think, let's just go straight to the spellcraft. Fuck all this other shit. That's not what I'm about. And that's fine. And for others of you, you might feel like I do about some habits where it's like, I don't want to do a spell because I don't believe a spell is going to cut it. I want to do some sort of more ongoing deep work, right? So it really depends on you. No one can tell you shit. This is your circus. This is your rodeo. This is your chocolate factory, okay? So you have to decide for you. What I will say is, if and when you want to do a spell, tailor it to the bad habit that you have. If your bad habit is around codependency and continuing to speak to someone with whom you have a toxic connection, then you're probably going to want to do something like a cord cutting, okay? That's going to be the kind of spell that you would use. If your bad habit is around unself-loving tendencies, right? Low self-worth, things like that, and habits that are formed as a result, maybe you're going to want to do poppet work. You're going to want to put some spit and some hair and some nails in your poppet, you know, so that it represents you. And then you're going to want to shower it with love, you know, rock it like a baby, rub it with lavender heads, you know, tell it it's beautiful, all that stuff. That kind of spell, a spell that involves poppets, a poppet would be good for you. If the bad habit is coming from having an unbalanced or disharmonious energy within, do some energy cleansing, you know. If the bad habit comes largely from situations that are outside yourself and unhinged energies from without, do protection spells, you know. You see what I'm saying? Tailor it to what it is that you think is required. Sigil magic is particularly good if you know consciously everything you need to know about the bad habit and you consciously want to break it, but you feel that your unconscious layers didn't get the memo. Sigil magic is very good for that. Glamour magic is particularly good if you are only finding that your bad habit comes up in very specific situations, short-term situations. For example, when you're with a specific bunch of friends, a glamour can be really good because it can help you be perceived differently in relation to others who might be bringing the triggers to you or encouraging the patterns. But also, a glamour is something you do on yourself, you know? So if you feel that you're particularly weakened or particularly susceptible in a specific situation, a glamour can be a good way of seeing yourself and your strength differently. And you really walk into the situation like, oh, wow, I don't even want to do that tonight. I literally want to do something different. So you've glamoured yourself. That's partly what it's about. Don't worry if you do a spell to break a bad habit and it only partially works, okay? Don't worry. Don't worry if you don't see it working immediately. I tend to find that some spells are best done in threes. I often say that about cord cutting in particular, that I have not really experienced a full cord cutting in just one go. Not really, not where it really counted. I've had to do it in threes, okay? Etheric cords are like the weird tangled roots of three trees all put together, right? There's lots of different tendons and ligaments and weirdness in human connections, or connections to places, or connections to objects, right? So I don't fool myself that I'm going to be able to go in with a pair of craft scissors and just magically snip, 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 and that's done. No, there might be certain etheric cords that I even want to keep, that I do not want to break, right? So I want to be careful with cord cutting. For me, cord cutting is quite technical. It's technical work. It's like being a surgeon. Not for real, because do not make me die. I'll kill you. But witchily, in the witchy area of things, cord cutting for me is like surgery. You got to be careful, all right? You want to cut one thing, but not the other. Or being an electrician, all right? We want to cut the right cable, guys, and we want to leave the other cables. Okay, so I tend to find that that doesn't necessarily work in one. So don't worry if you have to go back a few times, you know. I think often with Spellcraft, 3 can be the magic number if I don't see something the first time. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to consider that it might be something that needs to happen in a triad. To round things off, when it comes to using witchcraft to break bad habits, I'm going to give just a few more tips, okay? Just like tips to help you to go along your way and really, really make this happen for yourself. First of all, have a positive plan of action, all right? Do not force yourself to know, coming away from this video today, the one thing that you're going to do that's going to break the habit entirely. It might be that that is what happens. My hair's been bleached by festival life. It might be that that is what happens. It might not be. But what you want to do is have a process for yourself that lasts for just 1 week, you know? So you might say something like, okay, I'm going to dedicate a candle. I'm going to carve and consecrate and dedicate this candle to the breaking of this habit. And every day for 7 days, or as often as I feel like for 7 days, I'm going to come back to this candle. I'm going to put it in the center of my working space. And I'm going to speak the words of power over it. I'm going to gaze into the flame. I'm going to feel charged up. I'm going to cement my intention. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask my beings to be present for that, or whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. And then at the end of that 7 days, come and have a check-in. You know, go to your witchy journal, your book of mirrors, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, just write down what you've been feeling, what you've been experiencing, how you've been dealing with the triggers. Have you been seeing less patterns? Is there anything that you want to tweak or change or kind of like heighten up in the workings that you're doing? Really just sort of like let yourself have that check-in. After the week, you might want to say, all right, I'm going to change things up now. I'm going to start really engaging intensely with my God on this, or I'm going to really start like, you know, going out and finding the triggers and kind of like interfacing with them, or I'm going to do some scrying or a reading around it, you know, or I'm going to plan a spell for this coming full moon that's going to really kick things into touch, like now that I've gotten more strong in my perspective, or whatever it might be. So you've always got a P of A. You've always got something that you feel like while you are working on the bad habit, while you're throwing witchcraft at it, you know what comes next. In your record keeping about the bad habit, you can also write down like anything that came to you in dreams that might have been important, you know, celebrate your wins, write down any time that a trigger came up and you did not go into the pattern. Those are big wins. Celebrate them. Bring your jubilation to the altar. Bring your jubilation to your journal. Bring it to the work. The jubilation is a very very important part of what keeps the fire burning, right? Is the ability to go, oh my God, that came up and I did something different. It's working, right? So do that. Make sure you write down any signs you received, any good advice you got from the gods, or any time where you felt like your deities or your beings or your elemental energies that you work with were there alongside you. Write those things down. You know, don't just record like how it's going and any tweaks you want to do, but like anything related to it. I think that's really important. Utilize cues and reminders. This is a really important piece of advice, I think, okay? Often I will find that if I don't use cues and reminders, I am so scatty. I'm like the Mad Hatter, guys. I've got 15 fucking tabs open. I want to do everything. All right, I'm a Gemini rising, baby. The Sag sun. So really, I'm just kind of like all over the shop. If I really mean to do something with witchcraft and I want to come back to it, I want to check in with it, I want to plan something for it, like a spell or a ritual or whatever it might be, I want to make sure that I've got a post-it in my witchy journal, like on the front of the witchy filofax that I use would be good, or I've got a reminder on my phone, something like that that reminds me to keep coming to the work, keep lighting the candle, keep going and doing the thing, and accompanying myself with it for as long as I need to. Like I said, some bad habits are very easily breakable. It's going to be one session and you're going to be done. Others are going to take longer. You're going to feel like you have one step forward, two steps back, a little bit of a weird dance with it, and then it's done, okay? Some things like my skin picking, it's still an ongoing process. I haven't completely cracked it. I don't expect to completely crack it in a very, very easy way because it's a very, very complex nut, okay? So I'm proud of and pleased with the work that I've done so far on it. I could do with putting witchcraft towards it more. And so this is my reminder to give myself a reminder to do that work more, to put more power into it, to pray more on it, right? So yeah, do make sure that you are really kind of like giving yourself those reminders. If you know that you're the type of witch that like consecrates a candle, lights it and says, this is what I'm doing now, and then literally ignores it for a month and is like, oh shit, yeah, I said I was going to do that. If you know you're that type of witch, that's fine, but give yourself the reminders so that you don't end up putting your head back in the sand and forgetting that you said you were going to do this. Finally, my darlings, have yourself a well-rounded approach. You do not need to just use witchcraft, although for some people, they've used lots of other things, and witchcraft is what they land on as the final countdown, you know, the thing that they really want to use to push them over because they've tried other things. But for a lot of people, when they're breaking a bad habit, they're going to want to be researching and reading. They might want to join an accountability group, you know, they might want to talk about it in therapy or get some extra emotional support around it. So you can do those things as well. Don't forget, it's not like one or the other. It's not column A or column B. You can have a little from both. You can do things in your therapy. You can do your research. You can join a group that are working on accountability together. You can do any of those kinds of things and also throw everything in the witchcraft kitchen sink at it. So make sure that you have like a range of tools if that's what you feel you need. I wish you every luck and success and strength and inspiration and sparkle emoji on the way to breaking your bad habit. If you would like to start this work now, then pause this video right now, get a piece of paper or grab your phone and open the notes section and write down the bad habit. Write down like, this is my bad habit and I want to stop it. Like, this is what I'm working on. It's bad and it's got to go. I don't like it. I don't want it. And I commit myself now in witchhood, or whatever it is you want to say, right? You know, really do the work right now to begin it. If you know that you're going to click off this video and then go and do something else or watch something else, and you're not going to implement it, start now by writing out the words and saying them out loud. I really commend you if you have paused the video and done that if you felt like you needed to. Let me know down below, what bad habits are you going to be working on shifting with witchcraft? Let me know what bad habits you have said goodbye to using the power of the craft. Inspire other people, get other witches fired up down in the comments. We want to read what has been happening for you in your craft. Thank you so much for watching this. Don't forget to check out my Heart of Deity workshop happening this weekend. I'm very, very thrilled to be going live for 3 hours so we can all get together and really like raise the deity roof, as it were. Thank you for joining me on the channel. As always, I really do appreciate your time and your attention. It means the world to me that you would think my ideas are worth a jot. So thank you for your ongoing support in this endeavor. Much love, my darlings. Keep it rebellious and blessed be. Mwah.